Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Last Best Hope for Conversation, your Babylon 5 podcast. We have been away too long. Karen and Lou have been very patient while I've been out traveling with family. And look for an upcoming episode on Lou's Stephen King podcast where I talk a little about what I did on vacation. But today we are talking A Voice in the Wilderness, Part 2, originally aired on August 3rd, 1994. Earthforce Captain Ellis Pierce and an alien race both lay claim to Epsilon 3, the planet which Babylon 5 orbits. The revolt on Mars continues, leading to many casualties.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. So it's the second part. I ended up rewatching this episode 2 or 3 times because we were going to record, then we weren't going to record. Mm-hmm. And so I want to know what you guys think about them. Did they stick the landing on the second part of this episode? Karen?
Yes, I watched it thrice.
Yes.
I think for the most part they did. There were a few little things that I thought maybe Pierce backtracked really fast. It was almost like, oh, we're gonna get it. Oh, and then, oh, sorry, with this next sentence. So, but I enjoyed the storyline. I feel like we got some really interesting forward movement and maybe some hints in this one about upcoming stuff. And it's nice to hear about that planet, Epsilon 3. Because we had been wondering about it. So, yeah. And we did get a little bit more about why they're just now finding that whatever that stuff is inside the planet, because it hadn't been active. And because Varn was dying, they started to have the seismic activity. So it was good to hear that, because that was a question we had in the first half. But yeah, I think the storyline, and they did that thing again that I like, where the two storylines rated together in the end, which I enjoyed. So,
okay. All right, Lou.
I know that this episode was saved for me by Londo.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for that moment where he decided to go aboard the shuttle, I thought this episode overall was a continuation of the clunkiness of the first one. It also has that unfortunate characteristic, at least in the first season, of a guest star being pretty one note, Mr. Ron Canada. Sorry, I've seen him in other things and he's a pretty good actor, but the way he was written in this one was pretty bad. And his about face also, as Karen mentioned, was not really that subtle, smoothly done. They also really put a lantern on the Sinclair storyline, and they really didn't tell us anything about this planet or the purpose of this machine. So I like the ideas, the concepts in the story, but the execution for me was pretty bad overall for the 2 episodes.
Yeah, I'm a little jaded on the episode because I know what's going to come in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think it was interesting. It feels like we've done this a couple of times now, where someone from Earthforce has no respect for Sinclair and comes in to bully him.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then he has to go running to Daddy, the Senate or the president, and go, oh, respect me. And they've had to. It felt like we've gone to the well too many times with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, I have no doubt that someone who is the commander of a battleship in modern terms is huge. You're self-contained, or maybe like a nuclear submarine, right? That you're captain, you're God. But it did just seem a little clunky to me. I agree with you. The 2 highlights to me are Londo having a little bit of fun, though I don't know how we connected the dots on that. And then Garibaldi slowly unraveling, and we get the reveal that's bittersweet. So let's start with, right, they've found this guy. He's in the great machine. They bring him. We talked about this last time, remember. There's no debate on, well, we pull this guy out of this machine, right? It looks like connected, but they brought him back. And then all of a sudden, blank starts happening because there's no one in the machine. Lou, let's start with you. Give me your thoughts on any of that storyline.
Yeah, did that alien ever get a name?
Varn.
Varn?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. The most interesting thing about that storyline to me is who Varn appeared to. It was Sinclair, Londo, and what's the guy's name?
Dral.
So that was the most interesting aspect of that storyline. As I think I mentioned in our previous part 1 overview, that this episode smacked of the Spock's brain to me in certain aspects. So maybe I'm just naturally a hostile witness, because that's not one of my favorite Star Trek episodes, to say the least. So this whole storyline, it was pretty easy to figure out that he needed somebody to take his place, and the only tension there was who was it going to be? Was it going to be Drall, or was it Sinclair or Orlando? And that was the tension there. So, but as to what this planet is controlling, what all this machinery is for, I'm guessing or assuming, Jesse, that you know what it's for down the line. But for me, it's just a big black hole of, well, you didn't really answer the mystery. And I know I've harped on this subject before, but I just think this whole idea to me that they've built the Babylon 5 station so close to this planet, yet they're acting like they've just discovered it for the first time, just doesn't work for me. I just, like, why did you build it there? Like, I thought it was there because in case something went wrong with Babylon 5, that they would use that planet as like a way station until the proper rescue could come or something like that. But it's like they've just like, oh, there's a planet there. My goodness, we should explore it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. That part of it's really clunky, and I just can't really get my head around that. And I'm done.
Karen?
Okay. I don't know about you guys, but I saw it coming down Main Street that it was going to be Drall.
Yeah.
That went, because they made it very clear that he was ready to die and that he felt like he needed some purpose in the end of his life. And so that wasn't a huge mystery to me, but I didn't get that until this episode, because it seemed more concrete that someone else was going to need to go into that spot. So that wasn't a huge shock. And again, we mentioned in the first half, I know you guys just touched on it, but the fact that they just went down and took him out of the machine was so irresponsible. I can't imagine that really happening, especially if it's the captain and a high-ranking officer. They're smart enough to know, maybe let's not do that. I think I thought a little better of it than you, Lou. And I think it's more because we're getting that tantalizing preview of maybe some stuff that's coming up. And I am super patient, and I don't think you're as patient as me. But I mean, that's not a bad thing. You want the answers. And I'm like, okay, we're going to get them. At least I hope. I hope so. I haven't lost my faith yet. And I do have issues with Sinclair, his attitude towards this planet a little bit. He seems really blasé about it. And I don't know, I would feel threatened, and I would try and take some sort of action if there was something on that planet that I didn't understand, if I was captain, which I'm not, obviously. And I also wondered if this is why Mr. Vorlon is there on Babylon 5. Is he there because he knows about this technology and he doesn't think humans should have it? I mean, he seems to be a meddler as far as that goes. So I feel like I got a lot of questions in this, a lot of questions in the overall arc, and not as many answers, but answers that resolved the first half of this two-parter. Does that make sense at all?
It
I mean,
Yep.
absolutely
Okay.
makes sense. And so, okay, you've got Delenn, a regular cast member, a regular on the TV series. You have Londo, a cast member. Oh, you have Draw, a guest cast member.
right,
I wonder who they are going to put in the big machine, right?
right,
Surprised he wasn't dressed in red.
Yeah.
exactly.
Now, I do know that every once in a while, like I remember that, like the first season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, they killed someone that was in the opening credits because Josh Whedon wanted to do that. He wanted to surprise the audience. So I guess this could happen, but the odds are you don't think that is going to happen.
Well, and I know from things that I didn't know anything about Delenn, but I do know that Londo is in like all of the series.
Right.
Just from that actor being visible at the time.
Right. Exactly.
So yeah, it wasn't a shock that Londo didn't.
Right.
Although I did enjoy, and especially after it was Grail, I think, where he had mused about the fact that he had lost his Vim.
Yes.
And it was cool that he was very excited about something in this one. So
yeah, I agree with that. I liked that part of it. And it was as far as a good ending to Delenn's friend, right? I'm looking for something new. I'm ready to go to the sea. And he's the idea of that I'm going to have this wonders. I'm going to see the world. And Vaughn talks about that. And you get the really nice that she's looking at the planet and going, my friend, I miss you. And you get the nice quote about the definition of sentient life is sacrificing for others. And that was a nice callback to, because that was the question he asked her when he first saw her. So it wraps up nicely in a bow.
Does it?
But I don't know.
No,
well,
it didn't for me.
We needed, yeah. Well, what I mean is we had someone in the machine. We needed someone in the machine.
Right.
We got someone in the machine.
But the issue there, Jesse, is like, because you just went through that and said that Delenn is going to see all these wonderful things. Okay, how is he going to see these wonderful things? Like, what is this machine doing? We're not told. We're just told that you're not ready to know about it yet, which is the relationship equivalent of it's complicated, which I hate.
Right.
So, yeah, there's just, and Delenn was shown through the first part of the first episode and this episode to be like a mellow kind of dude. So when he's in the machine, what's the first draw? Sorry.
You mean draw, right?
What's the first thing that he does when he's in the machine? He blows 3 ships out of the sky. Like, just none of it jibed for me. So I don't mind mysteries, but the execution was just like, you got to give us some context as to why he's going to be able to see. This machine is going to allow you to expand your senses because it's capable of allowing you to not only do whatever it has to do on the planet, but it allows you to project yourself or something. Like without getting into details, if they don't want to tell us that, but you got to tell us why this machine is going to let him experience us all these things. Like, otherwise, it's like it's magic, and it doesn't explain it.
Yeah,
it would have been nice if they just had even like a little throwaway thing where it looked like he was communicating with that alien,
or project himself. Astrally or whatever, like the original caretaker was doing, and so that he could, because he never talked to anybody after he went into the machine, so we had no idea of what he was feeling. It was a closed off experience. Right. So it's just not executed well.
And it's easy for us, the Monday morning quarterback, but I have to agree, when she's talking to him and you're just seeing him, it would have been nice to. I go back to that Star Trek 1, right? The first, where Decker says, I want this, Jim. I want this as much as you want the Enterprise. And I certainly have my faults with Star Trek, the motion picture.
Director's Cup is a lot better, though.
But
it
is. And so you have that connect, you lock it down, where you're right. It could have been very easy to have him in the little faded, woozy ghost thing going, I'm happy.
Yeah, and that works. That Decker moment works because we know he's in love with Ilya, right? So there's a connection. But with Dral, there's nothing. It's like he he goes in the machine and
I agree.
he's a ghost in the machine.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
yeah. So I agree with you. And then the frustration is this is where I feel like saying, sometimes you can say, oh, this will pay off in the future. Or you can say, everything you're saying is on spot.
All right.
But I don't want to say which one.
Oh, okay.
Right? Like either everything you said is absolutely spot on
or
they set up something and didn't pay off, or
you're not answering anything.
We get answers in the future. And it's just hard.
I mean, I'm pretty certain that at least some of this is going to pay off, or else, this series would have sucked.
Right, exactly.
And it doesn't. So
yeah, I think it's emblematic of the story that, at least for me, I'm hung up on what I call like the window dressing, because the through line of the story wasn't executed in a manner that captivated my attention. So I'm getting stuck on the little details. Like another offhand thing is apparently they have some sort of magical communications devices, because they're talking to Earth and Mars there's no lag. There's no, like, I realize for dramatic purposes that sucks, but they don't explain that their communications at all. Maybe they will down the road, but even at least in Star Trek, they called subspace radio. So you got the idea, okay, this is doing something different than regular radio, but they just call each other, and it's like they're basically doing what we're doing, getting on Zoom and talking to each other, right? So with no lag. Or even here on Earth, we still get a little bit of lag. It's milliseconds, but there is some lag. But in Babylon 5 tech, they don't address that. At least they haven't in the first season. And so then I'm going, well, why am I getting so hung up on this? And I'm going, oh, it's because the main story is not clicking for me, because I like the ideas, like Karen said, and I don't mind mysteries, but you can't just present them in a way that doesn't fit within the established framework of the universe, and that's just going to cause a disconnect. And suspension of belief is a very fragile thing, and for the most part I'm going along with this quite cool. And the other thing that I'm sorry if I'm ranting, this it's just frustrating because
no, it's all right.
No, this is good. I love it.
For the last couple of episodes I was complaining about we're not seeing enough of the Minbari, and now we're not seeing anything of Jakar. Like where has he been the last 6 episodes? And it's just, I realize that you have a revolving cast and they have a budget and they can't have everybody in every episode, but I'm hoping that these issues are going to get smoothed out going forward, because and Sinclair, where's his girlfriend? Like, is she off? Well, I guess she's out prospecting or whatever she was doing, but that storyline hasn't gone anywhere, and he's not referring to her. He's not even like sending her messages or anything that as we know. So the fact that all these non-essential issues are clouding my judgment of the episode, to me, just says that these 2 episodes were not executed well. And I promise that's it. I'm done. I'm not going to say any more about it.
No, that's all right. It means that you don't have enough keeping you invested, at least in within the episode, to not be distracted by other stuff. I totally get that.
Yeah, and I know, like, I'm frustrated at times because, like, I'm almost like, okay, in my mind, there's 2 critical episodes left in this first season, and
there's only 3 left.
And
right?
we've got we only got 3 left, right? But counting,
well, that's good to know.
Counting this
2
one,
critical ones.
So
okay.
I in a lot of ways, I'm like, okay, well, let's just we could skip this one. The Quality of Mercy, which is next, and then we've got Babylon Squared and Chrysalis, the final. So, and then I'm ready to, because I do think they pick up speed on the second season. I think they figured out what they wanted to be.
All right.
And they start catching up speed. So I feel your frustration a lot.
Yeah. And that's typical for a lot of shows. Like we had that with Farscape and Fringe.
Yeah.
They don't really get going until almost the last 2 or 3 episodes of the season when they finally say, oh, Karen's door is opening spookily on.
Yeah,
I know. Sorry.
This is it.
It was being opened by someone, but he's trying not to put his hand in the door.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
That's all right.
It's not the phantom door.
Okay.
So let's talk about Londo.
Well, wait. Before we move on, Chrysalis is one of the. I'm trying to guess which 2 are important. Chrysalis is one of the important ones, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
And since we know that Babylon Squared, and close your handcuffs, Lou. Yeah, that Charles is joining us for that episode, so it's probably timey-wimey. That one may be the one that's not.
Yes. No, it is
so?
Actually, it is. Yeah, and we do need to figure out when we can have Charles join us because he wants to join that. So we need to figure out a time.
Yeah.
Yes, no, in fact, it is the ultimate that if I had to pick an episode where a lot of times they'll say there's seeds planted and you reap what you sow later. Babylon Squared is the ultimate where we plant seeds and then later you come back and go, oh, well, that was cool. So yes, absolutely.
Okay, so the Quality of Mercy is the one that we could skip if we wanted to. I mean, we're not going to.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I wanted to speculate
I'm glad you
on
did.
that.
All right, Londo. Londo feels like a kid again. He remembers when he was a young guy, hot rodding down Main Street, drag racing, whatever his version of that. He has the great line, thrusters, thirsters. If I were thrusters, where would they be? I think he was pretty funny in this. The idea that, oh, my good friend Delenn, you lied to me, and oh, this is it. He sees the ghost figure. He goes down. I thought this was a fun little episode for Londo. So, Karen, thoughts on our ambassador?
I agree. It was really nice to see him involved in this plot. I also think it adds on to that original arc for the character in that he is jaded and he feels like he's seen it all and done it all, and he doesn't have a lot to look forward to. So this gives him something fun to do. And he kind of, and I'm going to do a whole different franchise. He kind of reminded me of Han Solo being like, woohoo! Because Han Solo is very much like that in the beginning, at least, where he loves the chase and the thrill of things. And I think Londo needed this. And I'm talking purely on the character basis, not us watching him, but his character needed this. And it was nice to learn more about him, that he was actually some kind of commander in a raid. So he apparently was a part of the whole thing with Jakar. Like, so that may be why they are enemies, that he actually had a part in it. And it wasn't just his race having a part in it. So we learned a lot of little things that a lot of it can be inferred. And then a lot of it was just right on the surface. Like, he's really happy to be doing this. You can see that he and Delenn get along for the most part, which was cool. And I like it. You know, it looks like sometimes he doesn't have any allies on the station, that he's very antagonistic. But as far as like Garibaldi and Delenn go, it's nice to see him have friends. And I'm putting that in air quotes. Because obviously there's going to be some friction there in that he's representing his race, which might not always get their way. But yeah, it was really, really cool, his part in this episode.
Luke?
Yeah, as I mentioned off the top, that his scene saved the episode for me. His thing with the thrusters reminded me of the Enterprise crew in Star Trek 4 when they're on the Klingon, or Star Trek 3 when they're on the Klingon bird of prey and they're trying to find, where's the damn antimatter inducer? And then Scotty goes, this or nothing. And that was the same moment. So I really like that. I find it very interesting that he was one of the three that saw the caretaker. So does this mean that he has psychic abilities then? Because it seemed to be that this caretaker was presenting himself to people with a certain quality. So there was Sinclair, and what's the guy's name? Dral? Is that it?
Yeah.
Dral, and Londo, which it's interesting that he didn't appear before Delenn. So does that mean that Delenn doesn't have any psychic abilities? I don't know. And it would have been really cool if he would have showed up in front of Susan, but that didn't happen. But
because then we would have had another breadcrumb for her.
Yeah, and we didn't get that.
Those three people were involved in getting him swapped out, and that.
How was Londo involved?
That
with
he
No, he was swapping in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But he wasn't in the first, he didn't go down to the plant in the first episode.
No, I'm just saying that, he had an involvement in getting Drawl put back in. So maybe the dude saw a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah. So, but it's an interesting breadcrumb clue, maybe. I was a little taken back by how friendly Londo and Delenn were, because they really haven't had that much interaction in the previous episodes. So I liked it, but it was a little out of left field for me. I'm glad to see Londo, like Karen said, have friends. Like, he's bonded now with Garibaldi and apparently Delenn, which is great. I was hoping that he would bond with Sinclair, but now I know that's not going to happen. So we'll have to see how he interacts next season with the new commander, and that will be interesting.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of a reset that's going to be. But yeah, he's really expanded into a multi-layered character, and it's great to see. And I'm glad and I don't know if this arc for him was planned, or was this in response to fan reaction, or in the writer's room they said, this guy's really good at playing off of other characters. He's like the oil to everybody else's water. So I don't know how that came about, but I'm glad to see it. And I'm really curious to see how they're going to make Jakar feel as interesting to watch going forward.
So one of the things that I think is pretty common knowledge, and just to share, is there was not a writer's room on Babylon 5. It was J. Michael Straczynski.
Sorry. Yeah.
No.
Right.
And he would assign stories to other people, but come the second and through, I believe, all through the fourth, he writes every episode. So I do think that as he moved and he learned what the actors were good at, he certainly worked to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think maybe he could see, hey, this Peter Jurassic is pretty funny, or works well with these different characters. Maybe I could lean into that a little bit more to help not only give them something to do, but build my overall arc. It does feel like that there is a purpose for Sinclair. She has talked about that. They talked about that. Delenn said he has a purpose. He has a destiny that isn't this. She says he was desperate for that. I know if we had gone, he would have done this, because he's looking for something.
Yeah, and that was good, because when they went down to the planet, my question is, why is Sinclair going with them? Because he was one of the three. So it was good that they put a bow on that at the end of the episode. I did appreciate that. Yeah.
And Londo has talked about, if you remember when he talked to Morden, the guy who asked everyone, what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
It appears, and that's only slightly spoilery, that of everyone who answered, he seemed happiest with Londo's answer, and Londo ended up getting the eye back because of his friends.
Mm-hmm.
So it appears he has the destiny. Delenn certainly has a destiny, as we've talked about with the telepath reaching her. So in my mind, that's why certain people saw that, because the machine or Vaughn figured out this person may have significance coming through. It's kind of the opposite of DC Legends of Tomorrow, where they go, none of you had any significance in the timeline, so that's why we can pull you.
Right.
Yeah. But this is, there actually is some significance in there, what they're going at.
I apologize for Mr. Loudmouth, by the way.
No. That's I love it. I'm glad that he's sharing.
Yep.
So do any other things about I do love that Susan loves the word boom.
Yeah.
Right? Just like boom today, boom tomorrow, who knows? And I love that she plays her Russian roots up and like this pessimistic, good thing I'm Russian, I'm used to hopeless causes, right? That she didn't get a lot to do this episode, but what she did was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Right.
I really liked her reactions to Sinclair's standoff with the Hyperion. That was funny. Like, he says, get the X-Wings ready or to launch or whatever. And she's looking at him like, oh, really? You're serious? Really? Okay, cool. Let's do this. Like, I love that. Her reactions there. That scene was funny. I like that quite a bit.
I enjoyed
Yeah.
that we are calling them X-Wings.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, her line actually was, so if we go down there, it blows. If we don't, it blows. Anyway, just a little later. It's a good thing I'm Russian. We're used to hopeless situations.
Yeah. Mirroring today's events? No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, so I thought that was interesting. We've got this race coming back saying, hey, this is our machine. And so we have a lot of different things that we're pushing at. But I do agree with you, Lou, that it does seem a little convenient that, the very first thing we do when he's in the machine, he kills all these other kills everyone that was trying to go down there. So a lot of power, and we will see if that happens anymore.
Well, the bad guys who were trying to go down there.
Yes,
all the
exactly,
good guys were okay. And now we see that he has the power to defend that area. So is that going to be something in the future as well? I mean, I don't know.
All right, so Garibaldi's not doing well. He is worried about his friend Lise. He is very worried about everything that's going on in Mars. We get a whole storyline that does seem very, very relevant as why are we spending money to all this colony? You often hear, especially in today's politics, why are we sending money to these, like when Texas has the freezing point or we have flooding or there's earthquakes or something, that we send money, and some people will complain that why are we spending money there? I do realize they are actually tracked, that there are states that are deficits. They actually receive more money back from the federal government than they send in. And there's states that actually send more, that run at a deficit. They send more money to the federal government than they actually get back. So Michael does a magic trick, which is a really bad magic trick. He kind of loses his shit, and Jeffrey's worried about him, and he talks to him. So Karen, let's talk about Garibaldi's journey, and as I said, the bittersweet ending that he gets.
All right. Again, another saw it coming down Main Street moment is that when Lise is found, she's written him off completely. She's married, expecting a baby. That was so not unexpected to me. I assumed that it wouldn't turn out well for him. Just because, why else would we have it in the plot? Unless he's gonna get a new girlfriend, which Mars isn't close to Babylon 5. So how would that have worked out? So yeah, I feel like it was kind of a throwaway thing, unless it leads to him unraveling more. And I don't know anything about that. I'm not expecting you to tell me anything about that. But if that is something, a seed that's being planted to make him spiral a little further, then fine. Otherwise, I'm not sure. Or why did they include that if they're trying to plant a seed about the unrest on Mars? Because they could have done that in many different ways. And I did think it's pretty relevant to today's society that people are upset about where their money is going. And as we're talking, there was another hurricane in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is part of the United States of America. It is not a separate country. So the fact that we don't help them is troubling to me, at least. And I feel like what you said, there are states that give more, there are states that get more. They're all part of America. And if we can't pitch in to help America, then what can we pitch in to help? Mars is a colony of Earth. It is still connected to Earth. What's the problem with sending them money? I mean, that's my issue. Is, again, it's relevant to what's going on today. And my thought on it is, why don't we help them? So my thought on the Mars thing is, why don't they help them? Again, it mirrors my opinion of it. So, I mean, are we going to see more of that? And again, I'm not expecting you to answer me, but is Mars going to be something else upcoming? I'm assuming we don't see Lise again. So Garibaldi or Mars or both. That's what I'm pulling from that.
All right, Lou.
I'm with Karen on the implications of that call more than the actual, like, I'm a big fan of show versus tell, so I'm glad they showed who this love of Garibaldi's life was, but the actual call itself, the content of it was predictable, so I'm much more interested in the implications for how Garibaldi is going to handle this news, because he's been carrying this torch, I guess you could say, and now it's been extinguished. So the only way that I can see it being rekindled is if the woman's husband is killed in the whatever's going on Mars, and maybe that's how they could reconnect. But if they don't reconnect, then how is Garibaldi, is he going to start drinking again, or is he going to lose it? Because he is pretty tightly drawn already, because we saw him beat up that guy in the bar. So, and then he jumped into a shuttle against orders to go down to the planet. So he's not behaving professionally, is the best way to put it. So what is this news going to do to him going forward? And I'm very curious to see how that plays out. So from that perspective, I'm interested in it, and I'm glad they showed it. Telling, like getting a Dear John letter would have been probably quicker, but not as emotionally investing. And it's interesting, like on the other point that Karen raised about, and you raised, Jesse, about like certain states give more than others do. We have the same situation in Canada, so it's not an unusual situation. And given that Canada is bigger than the US, but has like a tenth of the population, these inequalities are much more pronounced. And historically, it's been like the province that I live in, Alberta, because it's basically a oil and gas province. We were sending out money to support other provinces, like say the East Coast, which now has just had their first real, not first, but had a real wallop from Hurricane Irina, or I can't remember, or Fiona. And so there's a lot of damage out there, and that was historically a fishing. Their industry was fishing, and we all know that industry has really become constrained and restricted, so they're getting more aid than they're giving out. So it's interesting that the show is really, in that aspect, I do like how it feels real, in that there's these grievances and inequalities between the various social structures and as well as geographical locations as well. And also, it was interesting that now we got a number on how many people actually are aboard Babylon 5. It's like 250,000 people. I go, whoa, that many? I was thinking like a couple of thousand. So that was good news. I wish I'd have known that a bit earlier, but yeah. So I'm really interested to see where Garibaldi goes after this episode.
Yeah. So I liked seeing Michael unravel. I thought that it was a good payoff from last time. And you're right, the bittersweet that he's very happy she's alive, but he waited too long. He waited way too long. And now then she's moved on, and he played it well. That's good. That's good. And Jerry Dole is like, really? But at the same time, he knows he's got no one else to blame. This is off topic. Sometimes unrealistic things happen in real life. Cent Hamilton is the CEO of the Dallas Mavericks. She was recruited by Mark Cuban after all their problems. She had been with AT&T for years. She just put out a new book, and she was on a podcast, and she told the story that she had started college. She had been dating a guy, and the guy called her and said, "Hey, Cent, I've transferred to a university closer to where you are attending so that we can keep seeing each other." And she went, "Well, I didn't ask you to do that. I have college, so I'm focused on getting my degree. I'll call you in 4 years when I graduate." Click. Okay. So 4 years later, she graduates. She tells the story. I graduate like at 1 PM. At 3 PM, I call him. I go, "Hey, this is Sid." He's like, "Who?" "Oh, come on. You know who I am." "So my mom is having a graduation party for me, so I want you to come." He's like, "Sid, I haven't heard from you in 4 years." "Well, I told you I was going to call you in 4 years. I'm engaged. I don't care if you're engaged or not. My mom is having a party. I need you to come, and we're going to go." She says, "We've been married 40 years.
Really? To that guy?
Yes. So
Well, that's cool.
yeah. So every once in a while, the thing she's like, "What? I mean, I told you I'm going to call. I'm calling you immediately after I graduated." I thought if Garibaldi could say, "Well, hey, I told you I would check back with you later," but I guess he never did.
Yep.
No.
So the question is this was a one-off? Is that we're never going to see Elise again? Or is this setting up that there's later going to be a payoff? Will this make him start drinking again? Or will this just be another bump of the road? That we don't know right now. So is this just a one-off or a payoff? Will there be a payoff? And we will just have to continue seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you cheat and go into IMDb and go, oh, there's only one line on the credit, or wow, they're in 50 episodes in the future.
Unfortunately, right? This episode summary does say something about that character, but your story also is a clue. So
yeah. All right. So anything else we need to discuss about this episode?
I have a couple little things.
Sure.
About me, my maiden name is Pierce. So Captain Ellis Pierce, every time his name was said, I was like, oh, I hate that name.
You can't get away from it, Karen, because if you go on Twitter or YouTube, everybody's talking about Karens. So,
both your names are targeted. Do not even start.
And I do love that. In case if you follow Karen on Twitter, she says a Karen, not a Karen,
right,
or something.
Yeah, that's my name. It used to be Karen L. But because I'm just so tired of that whole movement, I put Karen, not Karen, in my username. Oh, it's so irritating. Don't even talk about that.
Okay, Karen.
Shut up. I want to talk to your manager.
Yeah.
So there was that. And then I saw on the Lurker's Guide that there were a lot of little Easter eggs put in this episode. That one of the ships was named THX 1138, which is a huge George Lucas shout out.
Yep.
And when the language files were being downloaded by those aliens, Aurak from Blade 7, Skynet from the Terminator, the phrase, I am not a number, I am a free man from The Prisoner was on there. So it was pretty cool to see those. That I like it when he drops in references to things that he loves, which is cool. I mean, the Blake 7 one, especially because that is pretty obscure.
That's a show I've always meant to watch,
That is one of mine too. I've never seen it, and I need to see that.
It was one of those ones that I watched a long time ago, some of it, and then I was like, it's not really for me, but it's cool. It was my whole opinion about it.
All right.
But I might go. I don't know. I'm different now, so I might like it more now. But anyway, I thought that was cool.
Hyperon was named after the Internet Archive, home of the Lurker's Guide at the time. So that was it. Not as much fun as having the ship named Asimov, which made me very happy.
Yeah.
For me, Hyperon is the Dan Simmons science fiction series, which is a good series.
Okay. Yeah. So, and I do think one of the things also that the Hyperon doesn't have a rotating ship where there's fake gravity. This is, so it would be and I do like Captain Pierce's idea of like, hey, there's restaurants, there's casinos. This is going to be the best R&R for my people ever.
Yeah. And then he's like, well, so much for R&R.
Yeah.
Which is good.
In Babylon 5 universe, there's no artificial gravity for ships.
There is on some of the ships, and you'll see that it'll rotate to give it gravity.
Yeah, okay, but I'm thinking more like in Star Trek. They just have artificial gravity. They don't have to rotate. They don't. That doesn't exist.
They don't have that. No.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Learn something
new
every episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. How about you, Lee? Any other things we need to discuss?
I did like the Garibaldi Delin scene. I don't know if that set is going to be a fixture going forward, but I found it interesting that Garibaldi, for personal reflections, goes to a observatory to look out at the stars, whereas Sinclair goes to an arboretum. Arboretum, Arboretum,
Yeah.
Arboretum,
Yeah.
to look at plant life and that. So I don't know if that's symbolism or whatever, but I hope that set comes back in the future. I like that set. So
Me too.
yeah, that's cool.
I honestly cannot remember.
Okay, well there's an answer.
Yeah. No. I for some reason I think we see this again, but I'm not sure.
If there was there should have been some big emotional beats for characters there. If you don't remember it, then I've got to think that it's not.
Or not a big part, at least.
Yeah. Good. All right. So ratings. Karen?
All right. I'll give it 7 Mars racial slurs.
Okay. I like it. Lou?
Oh boy. This is tough. I'm going to give it 6.5 Ghosts in the Machine.
Okay. I think that is very appropriate. I'm going to go similar to Karen. I'm going to go 7 bad magic tricks. I think they addressed some things, but not significant enough that I am happy that Lou has been asking, what about this planet? What about this planet? So at least we now got the attempt of writing a story about it, but not necessarily really satisfying.
Is it just me? Like, are you two not fussed about this planet at all? Like, you've got this, it doesn't bother you that they don't know anything about this planet that they're right in front of?
Because I think that when they first, it was mentioned in the first, it wasn't a big beat, but it was mentioned that they surveyed the planet and didn't find anything. And I'm assuming it was hidden by Varn. And then when Varn started to die, that's when the seismic issues started happening. And that's when they became aware of something going on in the planet.
I get that, but
yeah,
they're out in space. They're building a space station. There's this planet right there. Like, why did they pick that spot to build this station? Like,
why that?
I thought it was because that planet was there, that they could use it as a backup or something.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe down the road it'll get answered better.
Maybe.
We'll see.
I understand what you're saying. There are a lot of unanswered questions about it.
Yeah.
But, I'm just writing it off as they, maybe the Minbari wanted them to build it there. I don't know, since they had an investment in Babylon 5. I don't understand the motivation.
Yeah. Like, why don't you just say that this space station is midpoint between all these various planets or something? Okay. Yeah. That makes a little more sense now, but they don't explain the location of the station.
Was the planet ideal gravity-wise for a station the size of Babylon 5? Right.
Yeah.
Is there some kind of main motivation?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see it, but it would have been nice to know.
And to all the
now.
listeners out there, I promise that's the last time I'm going to talk about that damn planet.
No.
No, it won't.
No.
Okay.
I think you should talk about it anytime you need to talk about it. That's what we're here for. So, yeah, listeners, come on, give them a break. It is a question.
Yeah, I like it. And you can send us an email if you have a theory or if you have a non-spoiler answer that you want to give to us at jklb5podcast@gmail.com. I do not know if you caught, I just forwarded the emails to you, Karen. Did you happen to get them?
Yes, I have them.
You read them? Okay, good. All right. So we've got a couple of emails. Go ahead, Karen.
Sure. The first one is from Holly from Wisconsin. And she says, "Hey, all. I don't blame Sinclair for not being happy about Captain Pierce trying to take over and going about it in a way that, like Sinclair says, could cause more problems that they don't need to have to deal with. Ivanova playing with Londo about not really telling him what was going on. I can see her reasoning as to why not. Yeah, that was cute.
Yeah.
Now,
boom.
Boom. And no, I'm not going to tell you anything. Now Drawl is seeing the guy from the planet that Sinclair and Ivanova landed on. Man, oh man, glad that Pierce listened to Sinclair begrudgingly about sending the fighters down to the planet. Okay, I'm interrupting here. I thought it was pretty cool that Sinclair thought on the fly about saying you need this part to go down to the, and they didn't need the part that he was just kind of putting him off. Anyway.
Yeah, he doesn't know that.
Right,
so
exactly.
Yeah, that was good.
The Darkharms, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that. are not messing around. And of course, Pierce has to come in right after Sinclair and make demands. If only Sinclair knew what Londo, Delenn, and Drawl were up to with the person that Sinclair and Ivanova rescued on that planet, I don't think they would be firing at them. Drawl staying behind to make sure that the planet stays uninhabited was touching. And we finally get an apology from Pierce about his overstepping his bounds. Also glad that Garibaldi's friend is fine. A good episode. Looking forward to seeing how the season wraps up. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin.
Thank you, Holly.
Yep.
Holly has been guest starring on Next Stop Everywhere for the past couple of episodes discussing Doctor Who.
Awesome.
And so I always appreciate her feedback. It's always fun to her stream of consciousness as she's watching. Does a great job of writing down thoughts.
I like it because it helps me to see that someone else was on the same page at points through the episode, which is cool.
Yeah.
And we got feedback from Nathan again. Thank you, Nathan. Hey guys, this episode I liked more than the previous one. It's more tense and paced better, although it is still missing something for me. And the resolution is kind of anticlimactic, which sinks the ending. Other shows usually rectify it with some kind of personal resolution or lesson that came as the result of the main event, or some ambiguity to create an air of mystery. Quote, was it really magic, unquote, or quote, are you sure about their intentions, unquote, etc. And this one ends with nothing of consequence happened. Now you know there's something there which might or might not be relevant in the future. Although it worked well enough with the first time I watched it. Although I must say, I love all the designs of the ships featured here. Earth Cruiser is predictably simplistic submarine, awkwardly bulky and very human. Alien ship is very unnecessarily complicated, uber industrial and menacing. And the Centauri are one of my favorite shipbuilders in Babylon 5. Londo's transport is both elegant and chunky, which is a hard thing to accomplish. Speaking of Londo, Peter Jurassic is amazing and can make a phone book hilarious. After you're done with season 2, I really recommend to watch his panel as Londo in full makeup at BabCon 95. It's on YouTube.
Oh, cool.
It's a delight.
Cool.
After season 2, he
Okay.
says. So,
Yes.
Okay.
And then with great regards, me. That's
Good.
Nathan. Thank you, Nathan.
Yes, thank you, Nathan. Well done. Lou, any thoughts on, I think Legacies was the latest one we posted
Yeah,
on YouTube?
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
As of this recording, I still have to get the first part of Voice in the Wilderness up. Should be in the next couple of days. Sorry for the delay, but I've had a bunch of writer and podcasts to put up as well. So it's next on my to-do list. Anyhow, so Legacies, we have a couple of comments, mostly about the order, when to watch the beginning. Graham Pilato, sorry if I'm saying your last name wrong, Graham, says that the last episode that would be spoiled by In the Beginning is in the first half of season 4. So definitely don't watch it after season 2. Multiple spoilers for multiple big plots and multiple episodes over all 4 seasons will happen if you watch it before the midpoint of season 4, in fact. So there's a couple of comments along that line. Simon remarks on the order of what the episodes we're watching, and he says that this episode is number 17 or number 20 doesn't really matter because it just alters a few dynamics in Delenn's storyline. And it will become evident once you watch episode 20 in your watch order. So that's episode 20 is the Babylon Squared episode, I believe. So that should be good.
Okay.
Marteki says he really liked our discussion of the Legacies, and he forgot how much we learn about the Minbari during this incident. And so much of season 1's mystery revolves around the relationship between Sinclair and Delenn. It deals the spotlight from the Minbari internal affairs. And somebody else mentions here that the Minbari, its owner, OENR, in general know the members of the Grey Council are, as least as much as humans in general know who their leaders are, but that information usually isn't shared with outsiders. So that was interesting. That would be mostly it. Yeah, that's okay. Good. So thanks everyone who keeps posting on the YouTube episodes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we did get an email that wanted to make sure that I was aware of a story that I will share when we go to season 2. There is a backstory about why commanders are changed in the real world. And he wanted to be sure that I was aware of that. I was. And so he and I exchanged a few emails, and he agrees that we should, when we do the first episode of the second season, we'll talk about that. And so I'll send you the email, and then we'll have a discussion about that.
Okay.
So great. All right. Well, next week, Babylon Squared, which is a really fun episode, very timey-wimey. Lou, if someone wants to reach you and find more of your fine work, how can they?
Well, they can go to YouTube and look for Lou's Reviews, where you'll find these episodes of our last best podcast. And also have my writer reviews and my Stephen King reviews or podcasts up there as well. On the Twitter, you can find me at Lou W. Sitzma or at S King Podcast.
And Karen?
Yes, as we mentioned earlier in this episode, I am Aliveria on the Twitter machine, parentheses, Karen, not Karen. And, I did update my blog, and I have a fancy little graphic at the top of my
Cool.
You can find me at posts. I had some fun with Canva this week. That's pretty much it. I mean, I'm everywhere and I'm nowhere.
Ooh, everywhere all at once.
Yep.
So I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. You can hear me talk about House of the Dragon on Small Council Matters, the Game of Thrones podcast on Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV. We're having a lot of fun talking about this new series. You can hear me talk Doctor Who every other week with Charles Skaggs on Next Stop Everywhere. And I continue to talk music and Bruce Springsteen on Set Listing Bruce. All right, guys, this was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to next week to hear your thoughts. Please send us an email. Let us know what you're thinking. And for now, be safe, be kind, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
And see.